There we go.
There we go. Okay. Being recorded. Okay. Welcome. And this is part 2 of health management. We're going to introduce you on how to start setting up your system according to what works best for your district. So we'll walk you through everything. And again, this may be set up differently for everyone, but we're going to show you how to just the basics of getting it set up in our system. All right, so first we're going to start with security. So let's go to system setup. And we're going to go to look at your groups. Under security. And these would be all the groups that you've set up. This is all the groups that we've set up in our training database. And as you can see, you have them all here. You have them with their access levels. And what we'll do from here is let's go ahead and go into group 9. That would be what most of the system administrators use. And we're going to just show here. Well, actually, do you want to go into the nurses group, Laura?
Yeah.
We'll just, yeah, that would be better. Okay, so here you can see, and you probably all have looked at this before, but you see here that you have the options of your accessible log types to set up. And also if you scroll down, there's your health and immunization information right there. So this information here is what shows up on your tabs when you're looking at the health portion of your student health portion. So if you have the certification, you have the drop downs here that you can use you can view, modify, and delete each one of these. You also need to make sure that you want the person to be able to view all of those, everyone in this group. And then also, if you scroll down to the accessible student screens, you'll see that their health is right in the middle there, and that also needs to be enabled.
So remember this piece, these accessible student screens, that's the left menu. So you can see in our case, the nurses, don't have access to the access accounts, all enrollments, those types of things. The things that are checked are the only things they see in their left menu. So we do have health turned on for them. Same thing up here. If there's one of those areas, remember on the student's health page, the tabs across the top, if there's one of these that you aren't going to use, maybe you're not going to keep track of, I don't know, PE waivers. You could come in here and you could say no access, and then that would make that tab not even appear for this group.
A lot of people aren't using the other health piece that tracks the
Yeah.
insurance and all that part. So
Yeah. So they just turn it off for all groups. You could turn it, maybe the nurses, you only want the medication to be seen by the nurses and maybe the secretary. So all other groups, you could set that to do not display, or excuse me, to no access. And then that would be, it wouldn't appear for them. But you could make some things view only. So, you're going to want to set this and look at each of your groups and decide which pages they can see, which pages they can only view, and which pages maybe that group can modify as well.
And I think it's a group effort as well. You and your district leader, everybody, should be involved. Like, what do we want them to see? What do we want them to have access to? What do we want them to be able to modify and delete? So that is, I'm glad you brought that up, Laura.
Yeah.
That's very important.
A group by group kind of decision. Any questions on this? Okay.
Okay. Well, let's walk through, since we're on security, let's walk through how to get access to the reports. So if you want to go back to system setup, and there is a system report security. under security.
And this is the one everybody forgets about.
Yeah.
Everybody does, because then they only see 1 or 2 little reports. They're like, wow, this is hardly worth setting all this up because I'm only getting a couple little reports here.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that a lot of people missed was when they, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago when they did the update to the health and added all of this additional
Right.
information.
Right.
They made the health reports, they didn't turn them on by default. You had to come in and turn them on because there's so much security around what people see, with the student's health. So they made a decision when they rolled these out to not make them available. You have to come in and turn them on for your nurses. So we have a lot of schools that haven't turned this on for the nurses, and they don't even, or anyone in their district, I should say, and they don't even know that there's all these health reports out there. So that's why we definitely wanted to show you this.
Yeah, this is really important because a lot of times we do get, questions like, should I be able to view this on a report? Yes, you can. It's just that you have to know how to get there
Yeah.
and
So
have
these
to
are
be
all,
able to
yeah,
have security. Yeah.
these are all your system reports by your categories. So there's the attendance.
And there's your health. So if you look at the top, there's a bar across the top. That's all of your groups that you have recreated. So you'll have to use the scroll and let's just scroll over to like the nurses group. You can see all the green check marks they have access to. The red, they do not. So what you can do is to enable a report, you just click on the red and it turns a green check mark. Also, you want to make sure you're real careful here because if you would go to the top and click on the nurse and you would to double click on that, it's going to allow access to every single report that's in that section. So you would be giving your nurses the access to every report, even grades, attendance, everything. So yeah, so you want to restrict the report access and do it individualized. So you can see there that now the nurse has has access to all of the health reports.
Oops, I'm clicking on the wrong, but yeah.
All right. So just be real careful when you do that, because if you don't want your nurses to have access to everything, and really, and it's just generalized too for all the other, and you can see how easy it is. Laura accidentally clicked on, the psychologist and was giving, health access to that. So you just want to be real careful in here and make sure that you are giving the correct group the correct access.
These health reports are fantastic, though. I can't see a nurse not wanting access to pretty much all of them if you have those pieces of health enabled, right? So if you have screenings enabled, this gives you access to a lot of screening reports, student general health. So nurses love reports because they can look at statistics, right?
Right.
And then you just submit.
Yep. And it is security. So it is that does actually ask you that extra, are you sure you want to submit this?
Okay.
All right. So that's how you access reports through security. Is there any questions on that? Okay. Most of you must know that. All right, let's move on to our health setup then. All right, so let's look how you actually set up your pages in health management. So if you go to district setup, you will see under health, there's a health setup and a health template, health plan template. And what we'll do is we'll go through the health setup first, and we will go through the health templates then in just a little bit. Okay, so starting with our first tab here under immunizations, you'll see vaccines, and vaccines explain how to add, explains and it shows you how to add a new vaccine and a vaccine code. So these are the list of vaccines that we've already added here. If you want to, Laura, if you want to just click on one just to let them know, see what it kind of looks like before we add a new one. There we go. So this is one that we've already added. So we've already added all this information in here. It shows you the vaccine name, the vaccine code, the state report name, state report code. I don't know that, again, Ohio is a little bit different, but we don't really use those state report codes. Some of you may want to use the CP code or the CVX codes, and it does give you an available list of CVX codes to use there. This is where you have the number of doses. And that's really, really important when it comes to, giving medications. The description, and then a place where you can mark whether this vaccine is optional or not. And then the rules associated with the vaccine.
So let's talk a little bit about the rules and all of this information. You know how we talk about PowerSchool a lot of times, and it's an international company. So, and in the United States, many states have to report their information to their Department of Education. Ohio is not that way. We kind of work through our health departments in Ohio. So really vaccines and all of that stuff is tracked through our local health departments. And, ODE has kind of stayed out of the business, and EMIS doesn't need to report it that way. So there really has not been, I mean, that's good and that's bad. The bad news is we don't have it set up in Ohio to work with PowerSchool to use a lot of this information right now. That's something, if the state was requiring that we report it, our state reporting team would develop the proper coding and all of that stuff that was needed for that EMIS reporting. So none of this, I guess, has been set up for Ohio. So this piece really isn't working, in Ohio, which kind of causes some issues with the compliance piece that we're gonna, kind of talk about, checking to make sure things are in compliance. Because we say, yes, this vaccine has 5 doses that it's needed, but there's no check to say, oh, by the age of 14, they have to have this many doses. By the age of 15, they have to have this many doses. So it's just saying, oh, they're not compliant. Well, yeah, they're only a first grader. They don't have all 5 doses, but it doesn't have that logic built into it. So it doesn't know. It just knows, oh, it's out of compliance because they don't have 5 doses. So that's the bad news about that piece of it. So the rules engine doesn't really work in Ohio.
The CDC stuff really is not set up in the
Yeah,
system yet. Correct.
yeah. So, it's something that we have on a wish list, but I don't know that when that might happen. So,
Right. Maybe future
yeah,
here when they start using, when, people really start using health management the way it should be used. So,
yeah.
yes.
But I mean, the big thing too to think about is if they add another dose, we every once in a while they'll come in and say they need an extra dose of something. This is where you can come, and I could come to the hepatitis B, and I could say, oh, now they need 5 doses, and I could change that, and it adds that extra column on the student's vaccine page for hepatitis B.
Mhm.
But because we don't have the rules engine set up,
Yeah.
right, it really considers that student, like if they're in kindergarten, they haven't had all 4 doses or 5 or whatever, it's going to consider them always out of compliance. I want to make
Right.
sure everybody kind of understands that piece. Those of you who already have it and are dealing with it now know that it does that. But some of
Yeah.
you who are new to setting it up probably don't realize that it's going to do that just because of that whole CDC piece and the fact that we really don't report to the state.
Yeah, and you can manually mark kids in compliance. So
That's
you could
right.
go to all your first graders and say, oh, they've received the 1 dose of that. That's all they should have at that time. And you can mark them as compliant, but it's going to keep them as compliant, you know, and so maybe 3rd grade, they need to have that next dose. It's going to still consider them compliant because you manually mark the student compliant. So there's, you know, sometimes more work involved that way as well. Some choose to do that, some choose not to.
All right. Any questions on this screen? Okay, and then I should point out too, up here in the right-hand corner is where you add a new vaccine. So you will see that same screen. This is where you can add that up there. So you know you can add whatever it is necessary, whatever your district is keeping track of.
All right. And you can see
So,
the asterisks that are
right.
required. You have to have a name, you have to give it some type of a code and your doses.
And your doses. That's most
Those are the
important things.
required pieces.
All right, and just never, you know, don't forget to submit then when you do add that dose, and it will show up for you.
And as on a lot of pages, you can, you know, change the sort order just by dragging and dropping.
And the sort order is how it will display on the student health screen. And did we, I didn't know, did we go over that there is a place on this vaccine where you can make it optional? I don't know if we talked about that, but I know that we talked about that when in our first session, you know, where you can go on and there it is. Okay, this vaccine is optional. I wasn't sure if we showed them that or not. Okay.
And remember, if it's marked optional on the student's page, it does not show in the initial list. You have to check a box to say show optionals.
Yes. Yep, it doesn't automatically show. Yeah.
We do have a question. What does the certified transcription accuracy mean? Oh, down here.
Certified transcription accuracy.
On that page, when you make changes on the immunization page, when you make changes, it requires that you put something in there about what the change is and why you're making it. So it's it says, I certify that this transcription is accurate. And you have to check that box.
Ashley, yes, that's exactly how, we explained that. This is ODE. They don't have to report to ODE, but yes, they work locally with their health departments. We, you know, in Ohio, that's how they work. They work through the local health departments and the Ohio, in turn, then the Ohio Department of Health. But it's not through the Department of Education.
Yeah, Andy, it's just an additional verification. We'll show you that on the student's health screen. Maybe we should go back and show that.
Okay.
Ashley, it is. I'm glad you get it because I think it's sometimes confusing for people, right? We do have to report locally to our health departments, but we don't have to report to the state or through the CDC either. So, but all that setup's still there because most states honestly do have to report.
All right.
Right here is the bottom check box. I attest that all values I entered are accurate and reflective. So that's what we were talking about. When you check that on the setup, you're saying you have to check that box
Yeah. So
before you submit.
Oops. So that's what this. Oops, sorry. Down here.
Yep. And there's stuff there that's you may want to keep track of that's optional that we don't have listed. I mean, we defer to you guys on that one. Just put whatever, you know, you're wanting to track and keep track of. We put a few optional, but not very much.
All right, yeah. And Laura showed there where now you
Mhm.
you don't see that box. You don't
Right.
have to check that box when making those changes. So
Okay. Any further questions on this page? All righty.
okay, so let's go to screenings. So here's the list of screenings that are currently available for tracking. It's the hearing, lead, the oral health. If you remember on the students' health screens, these were all in your drop downs when you were adding your screening type. So if you go to one of those screenings, Laura, yeah, hearing would be fine. And you'll see when you scroll down, you can add a screening provider type. These are just the types that we have added. When you go through here, you can see that once you add that, you can edit, you can make them active, you can delete those, and you can make those set as your default. You can also change the order in which you want them to appear on your drop downs. You can see here on hearing, you have lots of different options on hearing. You got your left ear, you've got your right ear. You can set these up however you want, whatever you want to, whatever, kind of information you want to put in here. You can add those to each one of those. The test type, you can add any test type.
Mhm. And remember this, what we're talking about is if I go to the screenings
And these are in your drop
and
downs.
yeah, so if I were to, let's go ahead and since we're doing hearing,
Hearing.
talking about it,
Mhm.
these are all these drop down values. So that was that screening provider type. That's the list that was added in our setup.
Mhm.
Those things. Okay, so these are the items you want to appear in the students' drop downs. We actually had, with all of the new items that they've added, they weren't going to test for all those things. So we had someone just add do not test, did not test or something as one of their drop down items. So that's totally up to you.
Yep, this would be set up however you do your hearing screenings. The screening outcome here, you can do a pass fail at the very bottom here. You can add anything you want there. There's unlimited things that whatever your district chooses to put in there, you can put in there. And move them around or make them default.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can't add new screening types. Is that correct still,
That's
Kim?
correct. Yes, that is
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. This is
That's the one thing I don't like. You
Yeah,
can't
I
add a
know.
new screening type. That comes pre-formatted. You get what you kind of get from PowerSchool with that piece.
Right. Okay. Any questions on adding the screenings or any questions about the screening types?
okay.
All right. Grade level certification. All right. So here we have a few set up for you already to look at. You can see that we've set them up as these are kind of like the prerequisites that you need for kindergarten, according to your local health department, or whatever guidelines you follow. But if you see here, we have it set up as grade level kindergarten, the ones that they need. And you can edit those. You can, again, make those active. You can delete those. You can change the order in which you want them to appear. And right there, you can, yeah, edit those at any time. You know, if somebody, you know, has added something that they needed for kindergarten, or, you know, taken off a requirement needed for kindergarten, you can do that here. You can also add anything that you want to on the, if you have another grade level. I know that there's, you know, several required in high school. You know, I'm not a nurse, so I don't know exactly, you know, what is required for each grade level, but in that drop down, you can see that you can put your grade level in and then put the description, and then that will show in their health screen.
You know, they use this in a lot of states for compliancy, right? So we've mentioned and talked about already that really we don't have compliancy within the state for some kinds of reporting. But
In
this is
PowerSchool.
real in PowerSchool. This is really good information, I think, just for everybody to have and
Mhm.
have it filled in so that your people can see what the requirements are. Because I'm not a nurse and I may not know for kindergarten. Usually they do, especially for kindergarten registration, that sort of thing. But it's a nice little additional piece that you can set up. And once it's set up until you make a change to it or have to add to it. So it's just nice to have on record.
And the down here at the bottom, the certification status values, you know, again, this has to do with tracking. Okay. And, you know, it really has to do with tracking an EMIS right now. And, you know, EMIS isn't tracking anything for health management. So, you know, right now, this really isn't being used at the bottom here, the certification status values. So hopefully in the future, again, you know, there'll be, you know, something that, well, maybe not something extra for you all to do, but but when it becomes a requirement, that is there for us to use once that state tracking and EMIS gets on board. All right, setup. All right, so setup, this is where you enable all the enhanced health screens. So you can see here at the above it says display office visits and screenings entered at other schools. Enable right here is where you would enable your vision screening fields. Some people are not, they don't want that enhanced vision, that they just want the basic fields that were there before. I know that on vision, they just expanded it a lot more, giving you a lot more things to choose from, you know, right eye, left eye, you know, giving you lots of fields that you can fill in with the enhanced vision. And then below that is enable enhanced health system features. So this is where you would enable all of the features that we talked about last week and today. The default medication end date, if you see the drop down there, you can make these anything that you would like. 1 year, 1 month, end of calendar year, or exit date of student. I feel that most of our districts that have this set up use the exit date of student. You know, some do use the one year, but it would make sense, you know, to do, well, it's really whatever your district wants to do.
Right. And it's just that default end date, you know, what date
Right.
it's going to put in.
You can change it, you know,
Yeah.
once you get on that screen, but this will default to it.
Mhm.
And then you can also, you know, hide health insurance questions in e-registration if you use that. If the student doesn't have health insurance, you know, these are all really related to health insurance things. And I don't believe any of the districts are using this
No.
right now. But that would be something, you know, if you really tracked that, that would be something that you could use there. Okay, any questions on this screen? Okay, so we'll move on to code sets. Okay, so I know the last session we did talk about lots of the different code sets that you use in the health management. So if you see here, if you see this, the code set drop down, here are all the code sets that you would use for the setup. So if you remember, we took a look at, I think it was, the monitoring. And this is where you set up all those code sets that you want to appear in those drop downs.
Yeah. So
And
just a little background. Immunization, screenings, office visits, grade level certifications. These 4 things were really all we used to have in health until they did the upgrade 3 or 4 years ago. And they added all of these other items. So the setup, you could do the screenings. We talked about that, the drop downs. What was appearing in the drop down, you set right up on the screening tab because that was the old way they did things. With the news things, now they use code sets. So anything from these tabs over on a student's page, anything that's in those drop downs, you will add through code sets instead of each page individually like they did here. So it's kind of confusing, but that was kind of their old school way of doing it. Since then, the technology has changed in PowerSchool, and now we have code sets, and that's where that information for those drop downs is held.
all right, so there is so what you want to do is you want to make sure if you take note here, there are a lot of different, I just wanted to point this out. There are a lot of different statuses. So when you're talking about, when you're on the health screen of a student, you'll see maybe, dose status. There's health monitor status. There's health plan status. So when you see status, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be under the code set just status. It might be, dose stat, health monitor stat, any of these different statuses. And there is a helpful documentation out there.
Take them to it.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go to that, and it outlines. Yeah, it's in the health setup one, the very bottom of that health setup page.
Health setup, yeah. This document here will be helpful, I think. Oops, not that one.
Oops.
This one.
Yeah, that one.
There we go.
Yep. And you'll see right here, there's a list of the system-defined health code sets. This document right here will help you find what code set belongs to what page or what menu. This was very helpful for me. I know when I first started, because again, you would get them confused, especially the ones, that say status. So you can go through here if you're trying to find a particular health code, just trying to find what page it's on. You can see, there's under the monitoring, there's the blood glucose level. It's where you can find what code set belongs to what section.
I mean, I just like to use it. Maybe I'm working on setting up my monitoring page. Okay, so I'm setting up my monitoring page. I know on that page, when I look at a student, they call it blood glucose. But if I want to fill in that drop down, I have to look for, in this case, blood glucose level. But they're not always, and on that page, they call it pump. But in the code set, you look for diabetes pump to be able to add the information that's on the page that says pump. We talked about, Kim mentioned, if I'm doing the medication on the page, the student page, it says primary reason for giving. And then you can, what do I want in that drop down? Well, I have to look for reason in the code set. And then I can start adding codes to the reason that would fill in the primary reason for giving.
And if you see there, I know I mentioned status, and Laura, and right there is a good, if you scroll on just a little bit more, yeah, you can see that, right here you have status, but that's under the right. And actually the code set that is attached to that is dose status because it's on the medication page. If you look up a little bit, you'll see status.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay. You'll see status and you'll see that it also says status, but this is the health plan status because you're looking at it on the health plan page. So that was a little confusing. So I just want to make sure that I pointed that out.
Yeah, we take tickets on that one quite often,
A lot,
right?
yes.
Because
Yeah.
they're trying to change status and they're like, I can't see it. I changed it, but I can't see it. Well, they changed it under just status rather than going and find dose status to make the change.
Right.
They
Which
like to
makes
call
sense.
it
I
the
think that's
status,
yeah.
right? But it's a different kind of status. It's dose stat.
Yeah. So if I health plan status, if I go to that one, here are the items that were on the health plan next to this under status. So that's why this document might be helpful. So you're making sure I'm filling in the right code set for the drop down that I want in the area that I want.
And since you're on that one, you know, if you want to add an additional code set, you can just go to add code, and here's where you would do that for any additional code that you wanted to put in that code set.
I'm just going to add a blank one, just a generic one here real quick, just so you can
Okay.
see.
Yep.
NA, description, start date, end dates if you want them. So I've added this one. I can come up to my student now and go to health plans. And if I'm going to add one, and is that what I was on? No.
No.
Health concerns.
Yep.
Sorry. I thought that's not right. Health concerns, and I want to add one. I can add a concern. Oh, wait.
Monitoring.
Was it under monitoring? I forget totally now. Code set, health plan status.
Health plan status.
Okay, it was under health plan. Sorry. What I do when I try to do something on the fly here, it gets me in trouble. Okay, we're just
They're going to want to do stuff on the fly too, a
Yep.
lot.
All right, we're adding one. So now if I would submit it, I have this health plan. I open it up. I can see. Where's my status? Oh, right here. That's the one I added.
NA.
Mm-hmm.
Which probably would not be really one of the
Right.
statuses you would add,
but I wanted it to stand out. So, but that's what setting up your code sets. So you kind of just have to are going to want to go down, you know, and work on each tab, and then make sure that you're filling in each of these drop downs by looking at this document. You know, and seeing, okay, I want to set up my medication. So, okay, the time, I need to find med time, and then I can put in what I want to appear in the drop down. Medications, we can import those. We'll show you that, but you can also add them one at a time. Okay.
When you're working on these, if you're like a district leader or not a nurse, I highly recommend, we all recommend that you work with your nurse on what they, what they want set up here.
Right.
Because there's a lot of this stuff that they might not need and might not want, but there's a lot of stuff that they didn't know they could have access to that they're probably keeping track of manually in Excel or somewhere else.
Right. So, you know, if I was working on my medication inventory, I can look at my little cheat sheet, inventory actions. I want to work on that. Drop down. Here's what's in there right now. And I can put in the, you know, the extra information.
And you can move those around the way, you know, the ones that you use most often, put at the top.
Right. Yeah.
Once you add them, you can edit them.
Inventory action was one of them. And then status is This is the one that is just status.
Status.
You know, maybe I want to add not administered for whatever reason. Yes. So
And you can add, start, end date. You can set this up however you would like.
You can call them whatever you
Yeah.
want. I mean,
Yeah.
there's multiple reasons
Right.
I would
Oops,
think
I guess
for
I should
this,
have probably
right?
made that a code 3 or something. Like I see what they did, how they set theirs up. Follow the pattern. You know, maybe not administered or no medication available. You know, you can have some different statuses there to track.
And you can set your codes up. You don't have to use 1, 2, or 3. That's just how we set them up. But you can use any type of system that keeps it that's the best for you. Yeah, that makes sense to you.
Alrighty. Of course, I have a sample student that has nothing.
If you go to grade 10.
Oh, okay, that's where your sample kiddo is.
Nicole, she's my sample.
So I can see in my inventory, I added, or no, it was actually under dosage, wasn't it? I was going to dosage. I added. Oh, I need to go where I actually give it to her, don't I?
Yeah. Yeah, this is where you just view her doses.
Yeah.
There you go.
Alrighty. So all of these different drop downs are under the different areas.
Okay. Any questions on the document or anything for the code sets?
There was those inventory actions.
And I encourage everyone, go through, go through setting this up and see, where does this appear in my health screens? You can see from the document where it appears, but maybe, you'd want to go to a student and just look at the drop down and say, okay, this is where I want administered and refused to appear under my status in this screen. And that way, you can, again, you just set it up however your district wants you, or what's best for your district.
If you delete a code set, I just want to say this about the codes. If you delete a code set here, like if you delete that administered at any time, you're like, we're not going to use that anymore. And you get rid of that, you can still see it by clicking on the show all at the top of the screen. On the right hand side, it will show anything that you've ever had before. So, sometimes you want to see that, what did I have before? Maybe I need that back. And it'll let you know that there's something out there because it'll say +1 after it under that show all on the right hand side. It will say at one time you had another one. And if you click the show all, it would show what that other one was that you've had in the past.
Yeah, I would, kind of recommend that you don't delete and that shows up hardly if they put an end date.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Yeah. So, because
you talk about the deleting though, because I think that's a big deal that we go to look for stuff on reports sometimes and it's been deleted.
Yeah. So in PowerSchool, as you know, most of PowerSchool, deleting isn't always the best thing because you may have used that code. You may have been using it for 5 years and you've got all these kids that have this, you know, had been giving the not administered code there. So if I delete it, it kind of leaves, you know, you're deleting information from records that you may not want to do. So I would think the better deal would be to just end it, that we're no longer using it as of this date. If I delete it, it deletes it from the database. So then you've lost maybe all of those refused codes on a student, you know, for history. So I think the better deal would probably, let me choose the date earlier.
Yeah, sometimes you accidentally end date something too, right? When
Yeah.
you're setting it up. So that's something you need to know. You don't put your end dates on there. I've seen a lot of people on their code sets put the end date as the last day of school. Well, you're still going to want them next year. So don't put it in date at all on those.
Yeah. So as you can see, I put an end date as of last Friday, so that code is no longer showing in my code set. It won't show up in the drop down any longer, but there I can see, oh, there's a code set that is just not active anymore. And I can click show all, and maybe now I do want to use it again. So I could come back in and turn it back on, remove the end date or add a new start date.
Yeah, we actually had a building who put end dates on all of theirs. And then we got a ticket when school started back up last year saying all my code sets are gone.
Yeah.
Oops.
So just, I would be very careful and cautious about deleting. You know, if you're just setting it up and, oh, I decided I don't like that one, I don't want to use it. Okay, fine. But if it's something you've had there and you've been using, I would recommend not deleting, just put an end date so it no longer appears in the list.
Yeah, delete's kind of a 4-letter word in PowerSchool.
Yeah. But I understand during setup, you know, you may make a mistake and, oh, that's not how I wanted that, and get rid of it. Okay. Any questions on code sets?
Because you have to go in and set these up, we really want to make sure everybody understands the ins and outs of the code set piece. It's probably the most important piece now to the setup when you're going to the new health tabs. So you have to understand where they're at and some of their idiosyncrasies, right? Like that there's status, dose stat, you know, all those different statuses, those pieces that you don't want to end those, give them an end date. That causes you issues. So just a few little pieces of that little puzzle that'll help you in the future.
Right. You're going to spend a lot of time in this right now during the setup.
Yep.
Okay. You can definitely tell it's a Monday morning.
You guys are still out there, right?
I warned them, get their coffees.
I think we might need to send out espresso. I don't think it's just coffee we need this morning. We need express shots of espresso, right?
That's right. That's right.
Losing that hour sleep's got everybody going.
Oh, Amy.
Oh.
All righty.
Okay. So if there are no more questions about code sets, we are going to take you to where you can mark the PE waiver. So let's go to.
First, let's talk about what it is again. We talked a little bit about this last time.
Yes.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. You go right ahead.
No. Okay. So on the student health screen, you can see here where you can mark the PE waiver for the student. So if you, click edit there. So you can let the teacher know this was the start date, this was the end date, it was excused by, and a comment regarding the PE waiver.
And guys, this isn't the state of Ohio PE waiver. This is a true, this student's excused from taking PE kind of waiver. So
yes.
And we did discuss about how the PE teacher then will get a notification. So, you can track this in the someone in the office can add this. Then that way that student, if they're in PE, will get their teacher will get notified that, they have an excuse for PE. And that's what we want to show you.
Yes. So you do need to mark it though on the course for the PE waiver to show in the teacher portal.
Yeah, that's really important. That's gets overlooked
the
a
link.
lot.
Yes, yes, that's the
link.
link to the whole thing. Yes. So if we want to go to a course, so under district setup, go to your courses.
There we go.
And I usually look up physical education. Is that? All right, so there you can see a list of our physical education courses. So if you go into that course, you will see there that it says show PE waiver. And if you check mark that, enable that, that will show on the teacher portal.
So any section of this course, it notifies that teacher of that section. And we do have a document that shows a picture of that. Let me grab that again. Oops, that's not where I wanted to go. Where's I must have closed it in the documentation. I'm sorry. Let me show you that real quick. There's a set up a PE waiver, and I can show you very quickly what it looks like on the teacher portal then when they log in. And I didn't mean to close this up.
I think this is pretty cool for the PE teacher. Sometimes they don't know, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I discovered a lot of our people weren't aware that that was even an option.
So let's see, wait, oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay, this tells you where to go and to do it, but this is what the parent or the teacher then sees. Let me try to make this bigger. So they'll get this extra little icon that will show up. That someone in that class has the waiver. And then when they go into there, it would tell them.
That description would show up.
Okay.
All right, so that was just a extra little tidbit we wanted to make sure you knew.
Oops, let me get back to my correct. There we go.
I don't know how you're keeping track of all those open screens, girlfriend.
Well, I didn't have this many open until
we got off track. We wanted to show them everything.
Where the heck is my health setup? No.
I think actually you may have closed out of it.
Oh, of course I did. All right, sorry.
It's okay. You were trying to show everything, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a very good thing.
All right, I need to get back into my.
So again, and I just want to reiterate, probably a lot of your districts are not going to be exactly the same. You're going to go through all of this stuff, and you're going to want to set it up according to your nurse, what's related to what your nurse keeps track of. And so.
And that's a good point, Kim, because you know what? Some of those screens, if you're not using them, if your nurse is not keeping track of like the health plan templates and not doing that sort of thing, then why show that screen, right? We showed you earlier, you have the capability of turning that stuff off for people not showing certain things or showing them. So you plan with the nurse what he needs to see, right? So.
All right, so let's go to the health plan template setup now. So if you go back to your system setup, or I'm sorry, district setup. and go to Health Plan Templates. Here's where you can set up all those templates. We did go ahead and set up an asthma health plan, but I'd like to show you how to create a template. So if you go to the top right there, you'll see where you have create. And here's where you create that template. So we could create, you know, an allergies.
All right. And
So
hold
the
on 1 second.
template's something that you can set up to use over and over again, right? So think
Mhm.
about those
Right.
things like Kim mentioned, asthma, you know, whatever we're doing here,
Diabetes.
diabetes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's headaches. I don't know. Something, it could be something easy, you know, that you
Mhm.
have, but things that you're checking regularly, right?
Right. Things you're checking on a regular basis where you don't want to fill in all that, all the you know, this would be something automatic that you could just pull down as a template. Had you have everything all set up, what you need to check for. You know, you may have, you know, and I can show you this in just a second. You know, you have your description there, so your template name, and then you would put your description in there.
And remember, this is a lot of copy and replace and copy and paste.
Mhm. Yeah, you may want to pull, you know, a diabetes description off of a medical website or something,
Mhm.
and post it in the description here.
I
You
think
can
we
have,
skipped over the most important thing on this page right off the
yeah.
bat. Don't enable the template until you really want it to
Yes.
go live.
Yep, that was my next thing. Do
Yes.
not
Do it.
enable that. Just wait to make sure that you have everything that you need in this template before you enable this for everyone to see. So you can see here it has a start and end date. It has who the template is built by. And then
Kind of
if
the
you,
shell.
yep, kind of the shell. And then if you go to your next screen, you also have an option of putting in your name of your template here in the description.
I'm copying one if you can't tell out of another.
And that's the best way to do it, Laura.
Yes.
And then below you see, you know, yeah, and you can make that as descriptive as you would like. But then in the details underneath that, you can make this your template. So you can, you know, add anything that you want to here. You can style it the way you want to. You know, you can add pictures if you need to. You can put, you know, just a guideline of the way you want, you know, every single student that comes in, you want to check this, 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 and this. You can put that in your descriptive details. You can add those tags where you can pull the date, the time, the user, the first name and last name. You know, anything that you want, you can pull there.
Mhm.
And you can, and like I said, you can style it or make it however, you know, however you want that template to appear. And then from here, you can save the template. Now remember, you didn't enable this template. So when you go back, you'll see that we have an asthma health plan that is enabled, and then this one we have not enabled yet. So you have to, so if you want it to go live, you want everyone to see this, you'll go ahead and enable that template. Or if you're, you know, if you're still working on it, you don't have all the information you need, you won't want to enable that until you get the information that you need.
And we'll go look at our
Nicole?
little Nicole. Health plans.
Mhm.
Put her on her asthma plan.
Mhm.
But if we want a new one,
You should see that new one there.
okay, I can add more information if it's
Mhm.
for her, just her now.
Just her,
Since
yes. You can
yeah.
personalize it on the student health screen.
Mhm. Down here, you know.
So if she has
Somewhere.
something that's, you know, a lot different than another student, you definitely
Messing
want to point
myself
that
up.
out here.
Come on, let me add. Okay, I must have set my template up. There we go.
Yeah, say students, parent once called immediately, or yeah, call the emergency medical immediately. That would be something that would be personalized to that student.
Yeah, your template is going to give that generic, you know what, this is the stuff to look for no matter who has, allergies and have light threatening things. This is kind of the generic information. That's your template.
Mhm.
And then when you add it, you can add that personalized information.
Right. I really like this. I mean, I know that, the nurses in schools, they're so busy. And this gives just an extra, little quick effort to, hey, I need to add this really quickly. I can go back into the student's health plan and add, their personalization to it. But the template gives you an easy access to that just to get it on their health plan.
And
What
then
I
once
like about
again,
it, go ahead, Laura, I'm sorry.
no, I was going to say, once again, we have the read receipts. We talked kind of similar to what the PE waiver we just looked at.
Mhm.
That's what I just
The
started to talk
teacher
about. I
will
love
get
that.
yeah, the teacher on this student's schedule will be notified that she's been added to this plan, and it gives, then they can look at the plan and they can say, yes, I read it. And then you would know who has read the information and who has not.
Okay. Any questions on the health plan templates? Good. Wow, we're just moving right along
Yeah.
here today.
We didn't say, but the teacher does see when a health plan's been added. They get a notification that a health plan's been added. So that's what we're talking about with the read receipts. Once they get it, they read, if they read it, they have to certify that they've read it. And then we get the read receipt, so we know what's occurred on the teachers, from the teacher's perspective.
Okay. No questions on that? Okay. Let's just go back then. Laura, do you want to show them how to do some health imports, some medication imports?
Sure, we can.
We'll go back to the start screen.
I think we first want to
Something
show
just
them.
hit my head. Is there a way for me, Laura, and maybe you know this, maybe somebody's taken a case on it. Is there a way for me to export out health templates so that I could share them with somebody else? Like another school or another district if I wanted to?
I don't know.
I don't
I'm
know
not
that
seeing
either.
that, but that would be wonderfully convenient if that we
Yeah.
had that capability. We're going to check on that for you
Yeah, we
guys.
could,
Yep.
be
Wrote
nice if
that
we
down.
had some generic ones, but yeah,
Yeah.
jot that down and we'll check on that. That's a great thought.
Be nice if just somebody had already created about 20 of these and you could just pass them on to somebody else. That'd be
Yeah,
nice.
Mhm.
Because I've
just
seen
tweak
some
it then.
really great ones. Some of our districts have really set their health, all those health templates up in great detail. So it'd be great if we could share those.
Absolutely.
Yes, I personally like that because again, I'm not a nurse. So some of the things, I can go back and look at and say, oh, okay,
Right.
this is what a nurse helped put in. So
Mhm.
makes it, someone else understand it a little bit better. Okay. Are we ready to move on to imports?
I think so.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so from here, we're going to talk about importing those medications that way or you can put them in, one by one, but it's a lot easier to import all of them if you want all the medications in. So from here, you would, on your start page, you'd go to the importing and exporting.
Actually, I want
Oh.
to show them the
The
file
documentation first. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the file first.
All right. So let's go to that
I think
file.
I'm gonna, so in our documentation, we have an imports folder in the health management folder.
And you're going to want these.
Definitely.
All righty. So we have information about how to import the immunizations, which a document you're going to want. But more importantly, down here is PowerSchool has created a document or a import template or file, I guess is what I want to call it, import file. That includes a ton of medications,
Tons.
a ton of medication. So they have one that's just alphabetized list and one that is sorted by groups, by the categories of each group, and then alphabetized. I'm going to go ahead and open up this import just alphabetized. And you notice it's a text file. That's what you're going to end up needing when you import it. But for right now, I'm going to right click on it. Oops, why are you not? Last time you let me do this and I could open it because there's your text file. All right, hold on one moment. Let me go. Let me get into it the other way I had before so I can open it the way I want to.
So when you look at it, it makes a little sense. It's not
Yeah.
a file.
Instead of just a lot of stuff on one.
Okay.
There you go.
All righty. So I made a sample one that I'm going to use for an import, so it's not so large. But this is the file that PowerSchool created for us. And as you can see, if I scroll down here through this, you can see there is a lot of medication. And my guess is you're not going to want to import all 1,229 records. Our suggestion is you as a nurse know what are the ones you most likely may have to administer in your building. You know the ones you're using now, and there may be a few others that you think, oh yeah, I might end up with that one. So our suggestion is that you may want to go through this and delete from this, keep a copy of it and delete the items that you don't think you're going to want to import, and then only import the items that you feel like you're going to use. If
Yeah,
you
on the
end up
opposite piece, right, Laura, though, if there's something on here that's not on here, you might want to add it to the import, right?
Yeah. And so if I end up deleting something and I need it later, I can always add them one by one. But I just think for your initial setup, you're probably going to want to have an import template. And that's what this is. It's a lot of stuff. And you'll probably, like I said, want to narrow it down. And as Harley mentioned, you may have some things that you're giving that aren't on the list that you might want to add before you do the import. But so I would, kind of want to come through this and clean this up a little bit first.
Martha's wanting to know how you opened that in Excel, Laura.
It wasn't very easy. You know what we'll do? We will put it's in our documentation. It's hard to right click and open it in Excel, which I found. So what we'll do is we will take an Excel document and we will put it in there for you just to make it easier for you to view it. But just remember, when you finally get it the way you want it and you save it, you're going to want to save it as a text tab delimited file to import
before you import.
Yeah.
It won't let you.
All righty. So I'm going to add that to our list.
Yep, I did.
All righty. So what I did was I just kind of went through and I made a sample import file and took just like, the top 60, looks like 65 records, just so we would have a small one to walk through how to do this now. So I have that saved. Excuse me. Okay. There's a document out there that talks through the steps that we're going to show you on how to do this.
Right. So from your start page, we go to importing and exporting.
It's actually, isn't it under system data page and data manager?
You can
Okay,
just go
yes,
to
you can get
importing
your,
and
Yeah.
exporting either way.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Our
either way.
documentation said this way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah.
That's
No,
why I
that's
was
okay.
going that way.
Okay, okay. So importing, exporting,
It does say that
or
here.
data, I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
Yep.
And import data here. Yes, if you go this way through the page and data management. And that'll take you to the data import manager. And from here, yep, you'll just browse for that document. And Laura she set just a sample document up. So we didn't have to do all of those. And then you'll browse to the import into code sets. That's where we want to put the document.
And we saved it
And
as a tab.
we saved it as a tab
Find
already.
that most times works the best.
And then if you click next, you'll see that it mapped all the fields that it's going to save in the document. So you can see there that all those are mapped to, you know,
This is
for the code set.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, this is what's in your document.
Mhm.
And it maps it to where you wanted it to go in PowerSchool. So it should, match up for you.
And then next. And then we check to exclude the first row.
Your first row is
Contains our
just your
headers.
headers. Mhm.
And here's the fun part. You think it's not doing anything because you're not seeing anything, but you can refresh. Oh, and I can see that 65 of the records went in. The first row did not.
Skip the first row.
You can see it, everything else went in. And I can even, if you had more failed records, we could click the download failed report, to keep track of those things. Okay, so now those medications should be in my code sets. If I go back. And there are the ones that I imported.
Right.
This is also if you wanted to add a new one, you would come to code set, medication, maybe you missed one, and add one manually as well.
So just a little bit easier way to get them all in at one time instead of adding them one by one. But if you wanted to keep, a real clean version, you could add them one by one if that's up to your district.
Yeah.
If you get a lot of
Depends on what you
import
have.
failures, we had we had one that was the top line, so it does show as a failure. But if you had more, sometimes those import templates are a little tricky, right? So you're going to have to go back and see what you were trying to import, and is there something wrong with that import itself? Obviously, why did it fail? So if you have issues with that part of it, we're just a case away. Just put a case in and we'll see what we can help you with that import. That's where we see people having most of the issues is trying to do an import.
Right, right.
If a med currently exists, will it be duplicated? So you have already created one and then you're trying to import that same. Yes, it can be duplicated.
Because, you may have one piece of it, of the description or something different. So
yep.
It
so
definitely
when you
could
come
be.
back and you look at this piece to see that your import was correct, if you do show those duplications, you do have the capability of deleting one. But yeah, absolutely, it will duplicate. It doesn't look and say, oh, look, there's already a Billify on out there that somebody created.
Right. Everything would have to be exactly the same.
Right.
For it to not duplicate. Yeah. Okay, any questions on the imports? Okay, and again, if you get to this and you have issues with it, please put in a ticket. We'll walk you right through it. But there is documentation out there as well, how to walk you through it. Okay, no questions?
There's also a document out there about importing immunizations. So, and it kind of walks you through that as well and how to import those. And it talks about, what you need, setting up your template, what columns you would need to be able to do this. So you would have to make sure that you filled all of those in. And I'll get that document over here too, just to show you. So it's called importing immunizations. It talks about, you're going to use quick import with this instead of the data import manager. But it tells you how to go to quick import to do it. Here's how you set up your document, the columns that you need. Okay, and it even gives you kind of I think down here, a sample of what it would look like if you were going to import them in.
Yeah, all of the old health screens like immunizations, that sort of thing, are always going to be through quick imports. All of the new stuff they brought out for health, that's going to be through Data Import Manager. As if it's not confusing enough, there's that piece
Yes.
too, right? So
I was just going to say that.
Absolutely.
Had a little more confusion.
But those are the two common imports we see is that we have some that, new students, they, importing some immunizations, or of course, the setup piece of it, the medications, because it could be an extensive list. Okay. You guys
All right.
all that in. Any other questions on that? All righty.
No questions.
it's just
Okay.
a lot. It's a
It
lot
is
to
a lot.
remember. And if it's the nurse and they are trying to do it on their own, it can be a lot. So it's really better with some teamwork here, right? To help set some of that up and get things created and figure out what you really need and what you really want. Because if you have, I'm just going to say it again, all of those tabs open, but you're not using them, it's confusing for everybody looking in on those screens too, I think, just to figure out where they need to go to see things. So keep it simple if you can, right? That old KISS theory in life. So
Okay. So what we need to do then is go back to start.
you'd have to do it through the data. So the question is, what's the best way to export what meds are already listed on our system? So you could export them through the Data Export Manager.
Which is same place as the import manager. Under data, page of data management, and we went to the import data, but you can also export that data. And I'm going to say in these reports we look at too, you may be able to find some of that information through those.
Yeah, our nurses seem to really like all the reports, though.
Yeah.
You're welcome. That's a good question. A lot of times you want to export that data.
So, yeah, what data do you want to export? Use current selection, next, and you can export that out and then take a look at it.
This is one, Laura, you probably do want to do this around the field values and quotes. because I think it does that whole.
I don't think I did, but
Weird thing.
yeah. Oh, maybe I didn't go to the right one. So, yeah, off the top of my head, I'd have to figure out which
Field it is.
which of these export templates. But let's look at some reports and see if we can't find it in there first.
Mhm. Yeah, so let's go ahead and go to system reports.
Okay.
So from your start page, on your left, you see system reports. And here's where you can scroll down and see all the health related reports.
These are
So
those
remember
ones
we
Yeah.
went
turned
to,
on.
we
Mhm.
turned them all on. So
Yep.
here they reside. So if you're not seeing them in your system, it's because you haven't turned them on.
Right. And
Maybe
again, be
your group.
careful here who you give access to these reports, because if you gave access to them, it will show here in system reports. Okay, so we see here, I mean, there's lists, there's lots of
Yeah.
different things that you can look up. I was trying to
Here's,
see if that
let's see,
was,
medication list.
yeah.
Let's look at that. I don't know what this is going to give me, but we're going to try it.
I know I haven't personally ran every single one of these, but oh, it's at the school level. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Let's try that again. System reports. I think you're going to find some, a lot of these are probably going to be, you'll need to be in a building to get a good accurate list for that. You can schedule some of these reports. So maybe I want to schedule it to run it every Friday.
It does do it by
Once by
date.
date.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. So we're going to say from November 1st to today.
The other thing, guys, is that it's showing you the current school only here because we did it at the school level. But if you choose a group of students that you're specifically looking at, then you could just click on the selected students. Otherwise, it's running for everybody in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And these reports take a little longer to run. They're running through ReportWorks, which is a separate piece of PowerSchool for reporting.
You know what? I think we had an issue in our train database the last time we tried to run ReportWorks. And I don't know if that got fixed.
I think it eventually ran. I just think it took quite a while.
But that last one was still pending from
20
from
years.
forever ago.
2 years ago.
Well, they turn off a lot of stuff in here so it doesn't accidentally send reports to places it shouldn't be, right?
I don't think it would take that long.
Let's go ahead and
normally
kind
in
of
your,
glance at some.
yeah.
But yeah, as you can see, there is a lot, talks about your PE waivers, your immunization history. Not a nice reports, I think, out here now.
Yes, a lot of people use these reports.
Was it doing that in both training databases? Is it doing that in Train 3?
I don't know.
Okay.
So you can see here, you can, and they're by, they're kind of divided out for medications, office visits, screenings, athletics. Again, this is what you gave, whatever security you gave to your nurse will appear here. And we found out that you do have to have that start and end date.
Yeah, because it houses this stuff for pretty much ever. Your all your immunization history, all of the office visits, it kind of keeps that stuff. So that's a lot of data sitting out there. So if you didn't have a start date and an end date, you could have 20 years worth of data pop up here and show.
Right. And no one wants to look at all that.
No, no.
From 20 years ago.
Questions?
Any questions overall? Any specific questions to anything that we went over today?
So let's look at health management up on the top on the left. We talked about that last week, but let's just show it one more time within the functions. I think everybody's aware of that, but here's your daily log for your nurses or whoever's keeping track of that as to what's occurring, what I need to do, what's going on today.
Mhm.
I love this
Shifts,
report.
location of student, if they're absent or not.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's a good little, piece for the nurses to have, office, anybody who's working in the office to see what's
Right.
going on in that arena.
Then I just come and I can click on it. Defaults to this time. Give it the dose. Gave them 1 dose. I administered it. Any notes I might want to add and save it. So now I can see.
And you can always, all that's filterable by the status. A lot of people want to, it's pending, it's already been administered, so I can sort on it by status or by my notes, that sort of thing. See what's happening, what's occurring.
See if they're here today. What
Yeah.
the Find Me alert is convenient right here. I can click on this to see exactly where they are right now. Nice page.
That's perfect. Thank you, Harley, for pointing that out, because I think,
We just went
sometimes they
over it briefly
lose.
last
Yeah,
week
we
too.
did.
So
We did. Yeah.
the immunization tab, though, I just want everybody to know can be very confusing to people if they're really not understanding that non-compliancy piece that shows up in the top right. Your students can totally always show as not compliant.
I'm going to see if I have a.
Unless your nurses, we're Ohio. We just mentioned that, our PowerSchool, the way we do things is a little different than other states and how they track compliancy, through the settings on their immunizations. So our students typically always show as non-compliant unless you, a nurse, or somebody else has went in and marked specifically that student is compliant with their immunizations. But then when you mark that they're compliant, the other piece of that is that they show that they're compliant until you do mark otherwise, that they're no longer compliant. So it becomes a very manual process keeping track of compliancy. Some nurses get a little wigged out about that, but others are like, I know I really want to mark every one of my students when they're compliant, and then I'll go back in and mark when they're not compliant. So they check kindergarten and they check for whenever the next doses of, whatever Tdap are due, that the students had that Tdap.
Okay.
And you can even look at optional vaccines. There's an option for that as well to see kind of what's going on with your optionals.
All righty.
Okay. Any other questions?
So
Okay.
now the fun part for you
get
guys to
set it
start.
all up.
Yeah. you know, and as we've mentioned, if you get hung up on something, you know, can't find it in the documentation and any of that type of stuff, check with your district leader. You know, they can all, if they're not sure, they can always put a case in and we'll be happy to help you out.
Mhm. Yeah, because it might be something as simple as, they've forgotten to give you security for, a specific page or report or,
Yeah.
something like that. So, yep, definitely let us know if you have issues regarding that.
Did anybody try running one of the reports in their own environment that maybe have stuff already set up to see whether they were getting a list of those immuniz I know
I
somebody
know it's
wanted to know what
worked.
they wanted for the
Yeah.
meds, right?
I've tried, I mean, I know that I've ran them in districts before, but I went to the other train database and it's not working there either. So I think they have report works turned off in our train.
Probably.
We're gonna have to check on.
I think they did that deliberately because reports were getting sent out that, went to an email.
They had scheduled.
Yes.
Mhm.
If you have any problems with reports, please let us know. There's some things we can check on for you in your server that might not be set up for report work. So everything should be okay, but just let us know if you have issues with running any of the reports. And you can always go to data export manager and fool around. I think you guys saw where Laura went to the health piece in data export manager, and you probably saw that we picked the wrong one, but there's like 40 different things you can export, and one is medications that's in there. So if that's something you're wanting to look at, a list of all your meds and you can't get it through the reports in report works, then try the data export manager to export them out of there and let us know if you have any issues.
Yeah, this is just sometimes overwhelming. There's a
It
lot
is, but you're
that
not going to mess anything
yeah.
up by trying to export out the data. That's the good thing. She went to health and immunizations, and then she said which one she wanted to export from. It's not just health medication.
Maybe medication inventory.
You tried medication doses. That's
Yeah.
the inventory that's on hand.
Well, it would be any.
Yeah, the medication, any medication, but it's the inventory.
Oh, you know what I didn't do? Right. I didn't choose students first. My students first. Now, let's try this again. Oops. McDonald's. Yep, there we go. Oh, it's not going to have, I don't, this train database, I don't know how much we've got in,
Yeah, but there's what it would give you. You can see what the results are going to be if we had anything in there. Medication amount for the student, their student's ID.
Yeah.
And the medication, anything you put under that medication.
Right.
If you just want a list of all the medications that you have, you probably saw that Laura did medication inventory, but there was also one that was just called medication.
Medication would be your list of
That's what they
medication.
wanted.
No, they want to know what they've used.
That's for inventory. I'm just saying, if you want, I thought she had asked for a list of what medications are already in there.
Oh, then that she could just look at the code set. I thought she meant what medications they currently were using. I'm sorry.
And she says, what's the best way to export what meds are already listed on our
Oh,
system?
then in that case, you just would go to your code sets. And it lists what's in your system already.
Good morning, ladies.
Yeah, so if that's
Yeah,
the,
I'm having trouble locating it in our system, and I'm wondering if there's
So it's
something just not set up correctly
No.
right now.
So
Maybe.
anything you already have in your system would be under the district health setup.
Martha Laura is saying they're under those code sets.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
misunderstood what you were asking.
Okay,
So
so
we would go to health setup.
yeah, I'm trying to go along with you to see if, so
Mhm.
district and then go to code setup.
No,
Health.
health.
No,
And then health setup. And then you
health setup,
code sets here.
code sets,
And it's the medication.
medication.
And that should show you what you already have entered into your system.
Correct. I was wondering how to export this information so I can share it with my school nurse.
I would say you probably would just, I don't know that you can export it, but you could print.
Okay, yes, okay.
So
I
on
was
the
hoping,
data export manager, that list of medications, it
Yeah,
wouldn't
is
export
where
out
you would
that
want to
list.
go. Mhm.
but
Yeah.
that's what I'm not seeing is that list of medications when I try to go through the quick export.
Not quick export, export manager.
Yeah,
Export
Martha,
manager,
that
so
because this
system,
is new, it's not through the quick export.
okay.
Yeah, that's the page and data management. Okay, I'm sorry, I totally misunderstood what you were asking the first time.
And to say that I phrased it correctly, I can't.
No, I think you did. I just went a different direction.
Laura's
So
mind went a
export,
different direction than mine, Martha, but I
yeah,
think I got what you were asking for
yeah.
here.
So health and immunizations, correct. Then I would choose the medication.
And say I don't have that title. So is there something that I don't have set up in the system? When I go through all
You
this and
are
I go to my
probably missing,
categories,
I'm going to get, so in order to see all of these categories, there's also another security. You have to have data export manager and have edit and access as well.
Capability.
Yeah,
okay, so that's what
a
I think
role.
I don't have set up in the system because I'm not seeing that title when I go
Okay.
through the steps that you've just gone through.
Yep, and that's a role that you'll need to, through security, need to add to your group
Okay.
or to you. Okay.
So much security wrapped
There
around all of
is.
this stuff now. And it's a good thing, but
All righty. Any other questions? I mean, I think
and Martha, you may already have that role set up for the data export manager. You might just not have it applied to
you.
yourself. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All righty.
Well, if you have troubles
Yeah.
with that, Martha, put a case in
Okay.
and we'll check everything out for you and we'll step you through getting that role set up if it's not set up.
Yeah, I'm sitting here actually with my head school nurse and there are a couple of things that you guys have shown that we're not seeing in the system where we will be putting in a ticket, and I'm hoping to possibly have a Zoom with you guys because we have a lot that
Or
you've
just stick
gone over
around
we're
this
not seeing.
afternoon. If you're staying this afternoon, we'll be happy to help you with it.
Do you have time? Okay,
Yeah,
Ashley
yeah.
states that, no, I was
Oh, we
asking
do.
Ashley.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ashley
Okay.
does state that she has time. We'd love to get some help with getting some things straightened out because we're
Alrighty.
really trying to get it updated.
Yeah, we have actually the whole day slated. Like this morning was just the training. And then if anybody needs help getting anything set up this afternoon, we'd be happy to, give you some help, or after, I should say, after this first part of the call even.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Alrighty. Any further questions? Okay. If you have,
All right.
you know, oh, did I hear someone?
Nope, just me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you need help, have further questions, just like we offered Martha, we have time. Please let us get you started. Maybe you have things you need to think about here, right? Especially with the importing of like the meds and that sort of thing. Maybe you're just wanting to stick around and get your template set up or that sort of thing. Please stick around if you can. If not, let us know and we'll be happy to set up a Zoom call in the future to try to walk you through getting things, taken care of and set up. We've done that for other districts.
Alrighty. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Lori, do you want to stop recording?
Yeah, that's what I was just getting to do.